Is BTS's 2026 comeback in danger? The $83 million shadow that could haunt Jungkook's focus, freedom, and fire is the most anticipated comeback in modern K-pop history, quietly being threatened not by music, not by competition, but by money. Specifically, an $83 million controversy that refuses to disappear? As whispers of BTS's full group return in 2026 grow louder, a storm is building beneath the surface, and at its center stands Jungkook, the group's golden magnate, a perfectionist whose creative fire may now be tested by forces far beyond the recording studio. Could a financial scandal tied to HYBE's past decisions disrupt the mental focus, artistic freedom, and emotional balance of the very artist fans expect to carry BTS into its next era? The question is no longer hypothetical. It is echoing across global fan communities, investor circles, and entertainment media alike, fueled by renewed accusations that HYBE allegedly used approximately 120 billion Korean won's KRW, roughly $83 million US, derived largely from BTS-generated revenue to settle debts connected to Scooter Braun and the acquisition of Ithaca Holdings. And as 2026 looms, with a rumored March comeback already dominating search trends, the timing of this controversy could not be more explosive. At first glance, the story sounds like a familiar corporate dispute, the kind that flares briefly and fades. But this one refuses to vanish. Instead, it has evolved into a deeper narrative about power, exploitation, artistic ownership, and the psychological toll such controversies may place on artists, especially someone like Jungkook, whose creative identity is inseparable from emotional honesty and absolute control over his craft. So what exactly happened? Why is it resurfacing now? And why are fans increasingly worried that this financial shadow could interfere with BTS's long-awaited return? The roots of the controversy stretch back to April 2021, when HYBE, then still widely known as Big Hit Entertainment, announced its acquisition of Ithaca Holdings, the American entertainment company led by Scooter Braun. The deal was framed as a bold strategic leap into the US market, positioning HYBE as a global powerhouse beyond K-pop. Officially, the acquisition was reported at approximately 1 trillion Korean won's KRW. Later investigations, however, suggested the total investment reached 1.2 trillion Korean won's KRW when additional liabilities were included. Among those liabilities was a debt estimated at 120 billion Korean won's KRW. According to investigative outlet New Tansa, this debt was absorbed by HYBE as part of the acquisition and allegedly included financial obligations linked to Scooter Braun's earlier purchase of Taylor Swift's master recordings. While Braun reportedly retained significant profits after selling those masters, the remaining debt, critics claim, stayed with Ithaca Holdings and ultimately became HYBE's responsibility. This is where BTS enters the picture in a way that has enraged fans worldwide. At the time of the acquisition, BTS was not just HYBE's biggest artist. BTS was HYBE's financial engine. Industry analysts widely acknowledged that BTS accounted for the majority of the company's revenue through album sales, global tours, endorsements, merchandise, and intellectual property. Reports indicate that HYBE used roughly 74% of its cash reserves to fund the Ithaca acquisition, supplemented by additional loans amounting to 560 billion Korean won's KRW. To many observers, the math seemed unavoidable. Money generated by BTS was effectively redirected to finance HYBE's American expansion. For years, this concern simmered quietly within fan communities. But in early January 2026, it erupted again, this time with unprecedented force. A post on the Korean forum The Coup ignited the fire, alleging directly that HYBE used $83 million of BTS's money to pay off Scooter Braun's debt. Screenshots, infographics, and translated excerpts from investigative reports spread rapidly across social media platforms, particularly X, formerly known as Twitter. One post from the account @OnEmpire, bearing the blunt statement, HYBE is accused of using $83 million of BTS's money to pay off Scooter Braun's debt, amassed more than 2.5 million views in a matter of hours. The reaction was swift, emotional, and deeply personal for ARMY. This was not just about numbers on a balance sheet. It was about years of trust, loyalty, and emotional investment. Many fans expressed a sense of betrayal, questioning whether BTS's relentless work ethic, particularly during the peak years of global touring, had been exploited to bankroll ventures that did not directly benefit the artists themselves. Adding fuel to the outrage was the silence. New Tamsa reported that it had directly contacted HYBE chairman Bang Si-hyuk regarding the allegations. The message, according to the outlet, was read but never answered. As days passed with no official statement from HYBE, speculation filled the void. Was the company preparing a response, or was silence a strategic choice? And more importantly, what did this silence mean for BTS, who were approaching a critical transition back into group activities? As fans debated corporate ethics and financial transparency, another layer of concern began to surface, one that went beyond HYBE's reputation and straight to the heart of BTS's future: the mental and creative well-being of the members themselves, especially Jungkook. Jungkook has long been known as a perfectionist, an artist whose standards for himself border on relentless. In interviews and behind-the-scenes content, he has repeatedly spoken about self-criticism, creative pressure, and the desire to constantly improve. During BTS's solo era and military hiatus, Jungkook's individual work further reinforced this image. Meticulous production choices, emotionally raw lyrics, and a visible commitment to artistic authenticity. In the context of a full group comeback, that perfectionism becomes both an asset and a vulnerability. Industry insiders note that comeback periods are already among the most stressful times for idols, involving months of preparation, choreography, recording, promotions, and global scrutiny. For BTS, whose comeback will inevitably be framed as a cultural event rather than a simple album release, the pressure multiplies exponentially. Now add a financial scandal that directly implicates the fruits of their labor. Fans are asking questions that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. Does Jungkook feel that his work, his sacrifices, and his creative output were used without his full agency? Could unresolved resentment, whether spoken or unspoken, affect his emotional state as he returns to group activities? And if an artist's sense of ownership is shaken, can creativity truly flow freely? Observers within the Korean entertainment industry have quietly acknowledged that such controversies can have tangible psychological effects on artists. When questions of exploitation arise, even indirectly, they can erode trust between performers and management. That erosion may not manifest as public conflict, but as internal stress, hesitation, or creative restraint. This is particularly relevant for Jungkook, who has gradually taken more control over his music, production choices, and artistic direction. A comeback era demands collaboration, compromise, and alignment between artist and company. But alignment becomes fragile when the past is unresolved. The timing of the controversy is what makes it especially dangerous. BTS is widely rumored to reunite fully in March 2026, following the completion of mandatory military service by all members. HYBE has not officially confirmed the date, but investor briefings, industry leaks, and media analysis have consistently pointed to early 2026 as the target window. The comeback is expected to redefine BTS's post-military identity, setting the tone for the next decade of their career. In this context, any distraction, especially one as emotionally charged as alleged financial misuse, poses a risk. Financial scandals do not exist in a vacuum. They ripple outward, influencing investor confidence, media narratives, and fan sentiment. Analysts have already suggested that HYBE's image could suffer if the company continues to avoid addressing the allegations directly. And when a company's image wavers, its artists often bear the emotional fallout, even if they are not responsible. Fans have also drawn uncomfortable comparisons to other recent controversies within HYBE, including internal disputes with sublabels such as ADOR. The pattern, some argue, suggests systemic issues in corporate governance and communication. Whether or not these perceptions are accurate, perception itself has power, and in the entertainment industry, perception often becomes reality. For Jungkook, the stakes are deeply personal. He stands at a crossroads between youth and maturity, between being the group's youngest member and one of its most globally influential artists. His voice, his image, and his emotional authenticity are central to BTS's appeal. If his focus is disrupted, if doubts linger during the creative process, the impact could be subtle yet profound. Will listeners hear it in the music? Will the performances carry a different weight? Or will Jungkook, true to his reputation, channel the tension into something even more powerful? Fans are divided. Some believe that adversity has always fueled BTS's greatest work, that pressure sharpens their artistry rather than dulling it. Others worry that the cumulative weight of global expectations, military service, solo careers, and now financial controversy could push even the strongest artists toward burnout. Social media reflects this split. Alongside anger and disappointment, there is also fierce protectiveness. Messages urging Jungkook to prioritize his mental health, to take creative control, and to remember his worth have flooded timelines. In a poignant twist, the very scandal that threatens to distract him has also reignited fan solidarity around his well-being. Yet one critical question remains unanswered. What does HYBE plan to do? As of now, the company has issued no official statement addressing the specific allegation that $83 million of BTS-related revenue was used to pay off Scooter Braun's debt. The silence continues to amplify suspicion, allowing speculation to grow unchecked. In the absence of transparency, every rumor feels plausible, every fear justified. From a business perspective, this is a dangerous gamble. From an artistic perspective, it is even more so. BTS's comeback is not just a product launch. It is a cultural moment tied to themes of reunion, resilience, and renewal. Any narrative that undermines those themes risks fracturing the emotional connection that has sustained the group's global dominance. As the countdown to 2026 continues, the industry watches closely. Will HYBE break its silence? Will the controversy fade? Or will it resurface at the exact moment BTS steps back into the spotlight? And most importantly, will Jungkook be able to create freely, unburdened by questions about where his past efforts were truly directed? The answers to these questions may determine not only the tone of BTS's comeback, but the legacy of their next chapter. Because in the end, this story is not just about money. It is about trust. It is about ownership. And it is about whether the world's biggest group can return united, focused, and emotionally intact, or whether an unresolved $83 million shadow will follow them onto the stage. As fans refresh timelines, analysts scan financial reports, and anticipation builds toward 2026, one question lingers in the air, heavy and unavoidable. Is BTS's comeback truly safe? Or is Jungkook carrying a burden no artist should have to bear? The question does not fade. It grows louder with every week of silence, every unaddressed allegation, every new rumor tied to BTS's long-awaited return. And as the industry inches closer to 2026, the pressure surrounding Jungkook intensifies, not because he has spoken, but precisely because he is not. Silence, in the world of global superstardom, is never empty. It becomes a canvas onto which fans, critics, and corporations project their fears. Behind the scenes, those familiar with the mechanics of K-pop comebacks understand how fragile this moment truly is. A group return after military service is not simply a musical event. It is a psychological reset. Artists must resynchronize creatively, emotionally, and physically after years of individual growth and enforced separation. For BTS, whose bond has always been both their strength and their narrative core, that resynchronization carries extraordinary symbolic weight. Now imagine attempting that process under the shadow of a financial controversy that implicitly questions whether the fruits of your labor were used in ways you never publicly acknowledged. For Jungkook, whose role within BTS has evolved dramatically, the stakes feel even higher. He is no longer just the youngest member absorbing guidance from his youngs. He is a proven global solo force, a vocalist and producer whose name alone drives charts, headlines, and revenue. With that growth comes heightened awareness of contracts, of rights, of where power truly sits. Industry insiders suggest that artists at Jungkook's level inevitably become more conscious of financial structures, especially after witnessing how their output fuels corporate expansion. The Ithaca Holdings acquisition was framed as a visionary move, but in hindsight, it has become a lightning rod for questions about who benefits most when artists succeed at an unprecedented scale. And this is where the emotional complexity deepens.